prodigies are a source of continuous debate among tennis fans. Who has lived up to their potential and who has fallen short? The side of the argument you end up at usually depends on whether and when a player has reached a significant milestone. Felix Auger-Aliassime and Carlos Alcaraz exemplify the prodigy debate perfectly. The two young stars of the sport, who recently faced off in the semi-finals of Basel, not only find themselves on opposite sides of the net in competition, but on opposite sides of the lived-up-to-hype discussion. With his US Open title win this year at 19, Carlos Alcaraz has convinced most tennis fans that he is the real deal. Auger-Aliassime, on the other hand, one of the most drummed players of his generation, is now 22 years old, without having reached the final of a major. It's a trajectory that will cause some fans to question whether the opportunity for a Slam title has already passed Felix by. With a number of under-25s at the top of the rankings for both the men's and women's tours, it's a good time to re-evaluate the typical age of a major breakthrough in today's game. Since Grand Slams are the majors for tennis, it's logical to define strong performance at the Slams as a breakthrough. The chart below shows the distribution of player ratings for the 100 most highly rated men's players at Grand Slams over the last 15 years. Ratings are beneficial for trend analysis because they're designed for cross-era comparisons and aren't subject to some of the peculiarities of official rankings, as has been put into the spotlight recently with the changes due to the pandemic and the loss of Wimbledon ranking points. For most of these years, roughly 70% of the top 100 have been rated plus 2,000 at the time they entered the event. Finalists have been on the higher end of the distribution, entering the event with ratings of plus 2,300 or higher in most cases. The rating distributions give a guide to define when a player is Slam competitive. First, we can consider when a player is likely to be at the skill level required to be a main entry player, which is when a male player reaches the plus 2,000 rating threshold. The following plot shows the age of men's tennis players in each season who first reached the 2,000 threshold in the given year. For example, in the late 2000s, the average was 26 years old. More recently, the age has dropped to 24 years old. We can also consider the threshold for a likely Slam finalist. In this case, a rating of plus 2,300 is the level players have generally had to reach to make the most probable final run. The age distribution for players getting to this level each year is highlighted in green. Of course, fewer players achieve this skill level in any year, so it's difficult to make strong conclusions about age trends. But we can observe that no player under 22 earned a plus 2,300 rating between 2010 and 2015. Since 2016, 4 players have earned that distinction: Alexander Zverev, Carlos Alcaraz, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Nick Kyrgios. And, to date, all have reached at least one major final. What about the breakthrough patterns for the women's game? Using the same ratings-based assessment for a major milestone, we see from the chart below that the threshold for main entry in a Grand Slam has been around plus 1,800, 200 points less than the same achievement for men. We can also see more overlap in the ratings for the players reaching the final and the overall distribution of the top 100 competitors. Both trends point to the comparative depth of the women's tour, which means that there's less separating the skill of any two players among the top 100 at a given time than has been the case for men's tennis. The age patterns for women's players also starkly contrast with the men. There's a less clear trend, upwards or downwards, in the Slam competitive age, with the median age of women reaching plus 1,800, hovering around 22.5 years for the last 15 years of competition. More women have been at the level of a potential Slam finalist, and there's some suggestion that the age of the milestone has been on a slight downward trend. We can see this in the number of under-20s who've reached a rating of plus 2,100 in the last 5 years, 11, compared to just 4 between 2010 and 2015, and 3 of those 11 competitors are already Grand Slam champions. Of course, being older or younger than what is typical in these patterns does not mean that a major milestone is out of the realm. It just means it would be outside the norm. Nevertheless, assessing the normal patterns of the age players achieve significant results in tennis can provide helpful benchmarks for competitors and fans in judging when someone is on track with recent performance trends or possibly underperforming for what is typical for a major result. The trends in the past 15 years, especially on the men's side, show that trends must regularly be revisited, as era shifts can make the outlook for young stars more optimistic for some generations than others.